Okay, all right. Hey, folks, it's Jeremy Kirkland. You're listening to Blammo. How are we doing? Happy Monday. Happy whatever day it is that you're listening to this. It's a holiday today in the States, by the way. I'm not going to lie. I usually try not to release pods on the holiday, but, I mean, I looked at the schedule and I was like, oh my God, Oliver Platt. It's Oliver Platt. He's on the pod this week. I will say this was a bit of a pinch me moment because the guy's a bit of a hero to me. And it's funny because you'll hear this at the beginning, but for me, Oliver Platt is the guy. Like, he's in everything. He's in many of my favorite movies, TV shows. I mean, geez, West Wing, good Lord. The Bear, Chicago Med, Three Musketeers, Beethoven. I mean, it's all in there. I mean, the list goes on forever. But Oliver Platt is one of those rare actors who he exists in every lane all at the same time. Movie people love him, television people love him, theater people love him, and also menswear people love him because, yes, the dude loves clothes. And it's funny because I will say this. Shout out to Maddie Matheson for linking us up because Maddie was like, oh, dude, Oliver's like a huge menswear guy. And I got to spend some time with him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I love clothes." And I remember the first thing he talked about. And look, I'm just gonna be honest. Sometimes people are like, "Oh yeah, I love clothes," and they're like, "I really like, wearing a sweater over my shoulders." And you're like, "Okay, sure." But Oliver Platt, the first thing he had said is he talked to me about natural dyed clothing, specifically persimmon dye, and I was like, "Yo, okay, homie is ahead. He's in it." So we really, really got into it in this pod. He joins me for a rare long-form conversation about growing up. Talks about son of a diplomat, moving from Hong Kong to Japan to Washington, D.C., discovering acting as a survival mechanism. There's some heavy stuff in there. His early days in New York with Stanley Tucci and Hank Azaria. We talk about body image, GLP-1s, Paul Smith, Japanese denim, so much stuff. And last but not least, we talk about why Mr. Platt thinks sometimes you need to give yourself the fuzzies. So I can't wait for y'all to listen to it. Let's go. Mr. Oliver Platt, never in a million years did I think I'd be sitting across from you having you on the show. Huge honor.
Oh, dude, please. I mean, what makes me so lucky?
Well, dude, you're the guy. You're so much, and I'll say this.
That's right, and I wake up every day thinking that.
Do you?
No, I do not. Are you kidding me? I'm the guy?
You're the guy.
You're high. You're the high guy.
It's funny because I've had many guests on, and there's certain people where it's like, oh, I tell this person and they're really excited, but then I mention to someone else and they're like, I don't know who it is. For you cross the through line of the menswear people, of the movie people, of the TV people, of every single thing. You're bridging it right now as we chat. So dude, I'm excited you're here.
We got to hang out more.
I know. Well, it sounds like we're gonna. We got a lot of war stories.
Because my own opinion of myself just skyrocketed, and like that's where we need to. You want to have a skyrocketing every now and then. You do want to have a little situation where you're yourself. Your opinion of yourself. Like, I'm so impressed with myself right now.
Are you good? You should. I mean,
I'm sort of. But anyway, I thank you very much. It's very flattering.
No, it's funny because I've talked to other people and stuff on the show before, and I do think there is a weird, especially Americans, you wrestle with being proud. And I'm not trying to get into a bigger thing, but just as you were saying that, there is this generational and cultural attitude of you're not good enough, and being proud is wrong. Being proud is wrong. Versus like sometimes, or if you say that you're like, you know what, yeah, I did a good job.
You're talking about being a proud American?
No. Oh. I'm saying like, I think part of it is American culture. It's strictly more with Americans in this level of like humility that almost self-sabotages in the sense that you can't really ever be proud of what you do because then you're an arrogant person.
Right.
And I wrestle with that all the time as a person who has, if I have a win or if I feel good about something, I can't really linger on that because you got to remember you're still a nobody from, you're still a preacher's kid from St. Louis.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a tricky one, but I do think it's important to especially in my business, like you sort of got to learn to give yourself the fuzzies because they're the only ones that really, you can't let, especially in my business, because you go crazy. You can't let the public or define your success for you. I mean, because it's just too all over the place. You know
because
what I mean?
when did you start? Your first film or your first experience in film and TV was when?
My first experience with film and TV
As a actor.
Well, let me see. I moved to New York in the fall of 1986, and I had been sort of hiding out up in the Boston area where I went to college. I went to Tufts University, which is a great place that has a really great little drama department, and all of my friends after we graduated, all of them rushed down to New York. And, I was way too chicken to do that to begin with, but my instincts were only confirmed when they all just started to come back in body bags. You know what I mean? And so I sort of hung out for a few years after I graduated, just kind of because Boston had a really healthy semi-pro scene, right? And in about 1986, I finally got an equity card from this wonderful place called Shakespeare and Company in the Berkshires.
Yeah.
And when you got an equity card up in Boston, you ran out of places to work because there were two places you could work at: the Huntington, and ART, I think at that time. I don't know how many equity houses there are there now. Yeah. So it was the time to sort of shit, I get off the pot.
Right.
And so I went down there and look, on a good day, I'm a compelling presence, all right. But by any standard, I was just phenomenally lucky when I got to New York. And by the winter of 87, I got there in the fall of 86, and by the winter of 87, I was starting to work in front of a camera. And
that's quick.
Yeah, but it was so disorienting.
Yeah.
Because I was, came up in the theater, and it's just working in front of a camera is so eccentric. It's just a really, it's one of those processes that you only learn about it by doing. You just got to learn all the different lenses and the tempo of how you get a scene and even a shot. And I only wish one of my very first jobs was just a fantastic job. I got to play Matthew Modine's partner in Married to the Mob. And looking back on it, I just wish that I'd had more fun, because this was such an amazing environment to work in. Jonathan Demme was he really understood that the environment that you created for people to work in was really, really important. And he understood that.
Oh.
And playfulness, it's like everyone's there. You do your homework and you pack your bags.
Right.
But if you're not having fun, then you can't kind of release all your homework. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if the one thing you can say, especially about screen acting, is the currency of it is relaxation. You got to be relaxed, because the camera is such a precise instrument. If you're all uptight, it'll tell on you. So anyway, I just wish I'd had more, because I was trying so hard. I just wanted to be good,
Yeah.
And it was
that seems natural, right?
Yeah, I know. Sure. I think that's a perfectly normal, healthy ambition, just to be good at what you do.
I have a few friends who have worked in film and TV, and some of them have never had the desire to understand how the sausage is made. It's like, look, I trust the crew, I do my thing, and then, I'm on and I'm off. But it sounded like, as you were explaining that, you were getting very interested in knowing how everything was happening.
Well, yeah, again, with the goal of doing a good job.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just wanted, I just wanted to be good. I wanted somebody to ask me.
Do you think you're good now?
I wanted somebody to ask me to do it again. You know what? Here's the weird thing about me. I don't know how it happened. Maybe it was just meant to be. My dad claims that when I started to get serious and about wanting to be an actor, having absolutely no idea what that meant.
Yeah.
I remember, at my mom and dad, they always invited us to their cocktail parties, albeit in our onesies, even, or our pajamas, and then we had to go to bed. But when their friends would say, "What do you want to do when you grow up, Oliver?" I go, "I want to be an actor."
You really?
Oh yeah, because
no astronaut, huh?
No, only because I grew up moving all over the place, and which is not always so easy. And I'll try and tell this story very quickly, because
you got plenty of time.
I know, but I've told it a bunch of times before. But when I was, spent probably four of the happiest. My father was a diplomat, right? And he was an Asian specialist, a China specialist in the earlier part of his career. And we lived in Hong Kong from when I was about 4 years old to when I was about 8 years old. These were the happiest days of my life. It was a little island in the South China Sea. We had we owned a half share in a blue junk called the Star Elephant, which we sailed in the new territories on the weekend. It was an idyllic. It was an island in the South China Sea with like a lot of white sandy beaches. You know what I mean?
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. But when we went back to D.C. in '68, I just had I just went to a private school, quite snotty, frankly. But listen, that's not fair. It was just a very different environment. And I had the poor luck to be the only new kid in my class. And, 8-year-olds can be brutal. And so and listen, I wore knee socks. I went in Hong Kong. I went to the Victoria Barracks Infant School. It might sound like some kind of army school, but it was actually it was the Victoria Barracks. Remember, it was a British Crown colony.
Yeah.
And so there was like a lot of British, soldiers everywhere. Not that many, but it was just sort of like that
Different time.
That was the deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wore knee socks and I spoke English with an slightly English accent. So I just got teed off on. They just teed off on me. Oh, and I wasn't some sort of, it was brutal. It was pretty brutal. I wasn't some sort of, I didn't have the strength. I was a people person, right? So I didn't have the strength of character to go read War and Peace in the corner. Like when they would be mean to me, I would go, if they were mean, they were really mean. I wasn't, and it wasn't like I was a narc. Yeah. But I was just not good at hiding my displeasure. And so they'd get in trouble, which then would make it all worse. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so Christmas comes around and I'm cast as the innkeeper in the Christmas pageant. And I get up and I have one line. and I get up on stage and I say my line during, the performance. And
how old are you?
I'm 8.
Okay.
And I, of course, can remember that line because this was a big moment in my life. The line is, "Here there is no rest or bed for poor folks such as ye. The rich, they lodge here. Yes, they do. But they pay plentifully." But now here's the thing. Nobody told me. It's like one of the things I learned much, much later is that one of the basic rules about performance, I don't care whether you're like playing the violin or dancing or what, you can be doing it all wrong. But if you're having a good time, the people that are watching you, they simply don't have a choice. You know what I'm talking about. You're sitting in a diner, you look across the aisle and there's 4 people cracking up. You have no idea what they're cracking up about, but you just start to smile, right? Because you're enjoying their enjoyment.
Yeah. So
in this moment up on stage, when I'm saying my line, I realized that at that moment, sort of performing and I, and fortunately, this was the sequence. Performing and I self-selected because I really had a good time. I was having way too much fun, obviously turning Mary Joseph and the baby Jesus away from the inn because I was supposed to be a bad guy. And I'm not saying I wasn't, but sure. But the audience kind of, they went nuts. And I knew what being laughed at was. God knows I knew what that was. I learned that all that fall. And this wasn't that, right? And so just to fast forward a little bit, it sort of became a technique because I kept on being a new kid and it kept on being a way that I managed being a new kid. I would immediately go out for a play and then have a group of friends and a certain amount of, cultural status in whatever that environment was.
Yeah.
Like the one moment that I'll never forget. And then we can move on is, the next play that I did at this school that I went to coming back from Hong Kong was the Mikado, and I could sing, and I had a song, and I played pish tush, and I think that the number I let rip was called Tit Willow. But I remember walking down the hallway, yeah, surrounded by my tormentors. They still tormented me, but it was a little different, right?
Yeah,
and the 6th grade girls were coming the other way. And the 6th grade girls were like, "Hi, Oliver." and listen, I didn't know what a hormone was. I was 9,
Yeah.
But I guess my tormentors did. And they were like, "How do you know them?"
Dude's got game.
"How do you know that?" No, please. They were like, "How do you know them?" I'm like, "I don't." But that was my, again, but I guess I sang the song well. And, this was just sort of like, so I'm just trying to explain to you what a powerful experience that was.
I completely understand.
If anything, it's sort of like, it sort of anticipates how completely the bizarre relationship that that our culture has, and it's just gotten more and more bizarre as the years have passed, with sort of like, because if you'll understand the spirit in which I say this, I had become a minor celebrity in the culture of that school. And again, it was just sort of like that's so like, these people didn't know me as the little loser with the knee socks and the English accent. They knew me as the guy, who sang Tit Willow, or who like turned the Mary Joseph and the baby Jesus away from the inn with such gusto. But anyway, but to answer your question, somehow, even though I had like plenty of insecurities,
Sure.
As a kid, and I have insecurities to this day, like we all do. But one thing that I was always just somehow had confidence in was my ability to get up on stage and to do that. Now, don't get me wrong, I gained that confidence over time. But I gained it like relatively early in my professional life. Where, don't get me wrong, I cared desperately what other people thought of my work. I'm happy to tell you I care much less now.
Hey, progress.
But I had to work some stuff out. I had to I needed to. I found a great shrink who helped me unpack all that stuff when I was in my late, I'd come to New York, all my dreams had come true, and professionally, which I thought would make me whole. And of course,
define dreams coming true.
I'd become a working actor, man, in New York City.
Hell yeah.
And was starting to make, movies and stuff like that. And
is this pre or post Three Musketeers?
It's pre.
Okay.
It's pre.
Yeah.
Three Musketeers was like 1989 or 90.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway.
Well, it sounded like too, to go back a tiny bit, where you were able to be more of yourself by being other people.
Totally. And I didn't, that's pretty smart, because I didn't realize that for a while. But yeah, it's one of the, first of all, on a much more sort of like apparent level, it's not too hard to figure out how much fun it is to just like pretend you're other people. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
But then if you want to go a little bit deeper, it's like, oh, wait, you're actually getting to maybe be the person that you aren't, or that you can't be, which is was different.
Have you ever felt lost in a character, in the sense that I like being this character so much, like I wonder how this person might exist in other formats? Not like a method acting, but I think, a friend of mine, he plays a different character. He's like, I love being this person so much. Sometimes I wonder, like, am I becoming that person, or is that person becoming me?
I haven't really had that. Partially one of the things that I've always been drawn to, or maybe they've been drawn to me. I tend, especially look, the good parts aren't necessarily the people who you want to be your entire life. They're like, they're sometimes morally challenged, sure, or they're freaks or creeps, But yeah, I'm definitely not. I'm not. I would never describe myself as a method actor, even though it's not.
Sure.
There's so much. There's a lot of overlap in those Venn diagrams.
Yeah.
But listen. Sometimes the only this is I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but
that's great.
The only time that and I experienced this recently working on one of the two shows that I've been working on for last number of years, where I play in an NBC primetime drama. It's one of the Dick Wolf Chicago shows. I'm in the hospital one, right? And
Chicago Med.
And I play a kindly psychiatrist.
Yeah. Dude, you're great. Yeah, I've seen it.
Thank you. And this guy, we have this new team of new head writer who's taken the show in all these different, really unusual, exciting directions, and he's kind of going under the hood of our characters.
Yeah,
and I've had to do a couple of really challenging episodes. Like one of them, which was actually, one of the things that he started to do this thing every year where he focuses one episode a season on just one character.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're in every scene. And it was my turn this year. And it basically was like the worst day of my character's life. And then there was actually, I thought it was just going to be one episode, but then there was sort of like 1.5 or maybe even 1 3/4, because the next episode was a bit of a sequel. But I remember having a really hard, having a hard time, like going home and leave. Usually I'm very good at leaving work.
Yeah. Like turning on, turning off.
Yeah. And I was just not having an easy time of it. But I don't know. I've been playing the character for 11 years. Maybe it had something to do with that.
Well, I think that, yeah, I mean, that character has been around for a while. And I think it's, it's also, as I'm sure you've had different interactions with people, how you portray someone really sinks in. And with some of these people in the public, where they see you as that, they see you as, whether it's a film role or in this case, a longstanding television role, they view you more as that person. And even when you're not being that person.
Well, one of the things that I really love about this job, and I got to give, Dick Wolf just a huge amount of credit, right? Because he called me up 12 years ago.
D-dubs.
And he said he was doing this, a third Chicago show, spinning him off of the first two, which is like basically three different shows about first responders in Chicago. And the first one was a firehouse, the second one was a police station, and this was a hospital.
Yeah.
And he said there's a role for a psychiatrist in this show. He said there's never been a psychiatrist in a medical procedural before. And I was privately going, come on, Dick. Because I grew up, like, the shows that I loved when I was a kid were like St. Elsewhere and ER and all these really but kind of progressive, high execution. Like, these were some of the shows. These were amazing television shows, Yeah. And I refuse to believe that there wasn't a psychiatrist in any one of those shows, but there wasn't.
Yeah, there wasn't.
And what Dick understood, and then the reason there wasn't was because talking about mental health issues just way too scary. Way too scary for the network, for the people didn't want to do it. The networks, the advertisers, they actually understood that at that point that was it's too much voodoo, too stigmatized, and what Dick had figured out is that the world had become ready.
Yeah.
And guess what? He was absolutely right, because I remember the first time we told a story about depression, our little corner of the internet just freaking lit up.
Yeah.
And that's just deeply, when the great irony of this for me is that, I didn't, it took me a while. It was a difficult decision for me just because I had never done a procedural before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of hemmed and hawed and Dick finally was like, basically made it impossible for me not try it out. God bless him. And I'm so grateful that he did.
Sure.
Because if you told me that 11 years later, I would have said, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But I love the job. And one of the reasons I love the job is because my character gets to tell stories every week that destigmatize mental health issues that, believe it or not, still in this day and age, look, my mother was a psychiatric social worker. So I just grew up thinking that mental health support was a normal thing, that everybody, that everybody should have access to if they wanted it. Right.
Yeah.
And I was very wrong about that. And, so it's a, And I guess what's kind of ironic about it is that around that time, like, the world was starting to kind of go to really, it's like, this is like bad thing. The world was just starting to, 2015. And I remember going, God, I really like being an actor, but how much am I really helping? You know what I mean?
Oh, man.
Well, I know, but here's the thing, though. Yes, listen, entertainment, distraction, that's really important. But one of the things about, especially if you're working in front of a camera, it's like, it's a very delay. You don't, that's why I say you got to learn to give yourself the fuzzies, because it's 9 months before you might see the fruits of your labors. In network television, it's a lot shorter than that.
Yeah.
But I don't, the great thing about working in the theater is in front of an audience, that exchange happens immediately.
Yeah.
You're telling a story and the audience is responding, and that's one of the things that makes working in front of a theater so incredibly satisfying. Yeah. Because you have that exchange, just every night. Every time you tell the story, but that's not how. So it's just delayed. And anyway, that's fine. I actually really love. I believe it or not, I prefer. I like Anyway,
you prefer TV, or you prefer camera?
Over time, it's really become, for all kinds of reasons. But anyway,
sure.
I still love working and doing a play. It's just that it's remarkably. A lot has got to do with my laziness and also, like. Well, because there's a whole other half to that that's sort of how I became an actor story, which I don't know if I want to tell. It's really so
You're
fun.
Good.
It's so boring. But it's more like it's become the short version. It has become my preferred,
medium.
Medium. I mean, okay, look, once about a couple of years after I started to work in front of the camera, which involves lots of travel.
Yeah.
I started family, and I missed my wife and kids, and I remember at some point I was offered like a play that I really wanted. It was like a really amazing job, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this because the big bonus is that I'm gonna be in New York. I'm gonna see my family. Wrong. Because theater hours are just diametrically opposed to family hours, especially little kid family hours. Because when they're going to bed, you're going to work, and when they're waking up, you're sleeping in. And so it was kind of a mean joke because I never saw my family, but so that's one reason, right? But there's other darker forces at work there. But anyway, yeah.
So you continue to create this insane, incredible film and TV career, one of which for me was Beethoven. I'm sorry,
dude. What do you mean? It's a classic.
It is one of my.
I've been given more awards by 3-year-old, by 4 or 5-year-olds. I literally went to a dinner at a friend's house when I was, and their kid had drawn like a little. I know he had drawn a little Oscar. And then colored it in and cut it out for me.
It's
the Beethoven.
It's so good. And I'm curious, one, when was the last time you saw it?
Oh, it's been a while. But
Grodin is a force.
Dude, it's Charles Grodin, Bonnie Hunt, my old pal, Mr. Tucci, it's like, who else?
David Duchovny.
Oh, David Duchovny, fucking Dean. The most inspired casting was Dean Jones as the evil doctor.
He is a bad guy.
Who we first think is just this kindly veterinarian, right?
Yeah. Oh, God. I mean, was that where you and Stanley Tucci became buddies, or were you already friends?
No. We became buddies much, way before that.
Yeah. When did you guys meet? Because you guys, he's like your best friend, right?
We met during we were doing a John Guare play actually at Yale, at the Yale Rep. Neither of us attended the Yale School of Drama, but we met there doing a play called Moon Over Miami.
Yeah,
which was happened pretty early on in my sort of after I moved to New York, and Stan was he was my first working actor buddy.
Yeah.
And
you guys kind of felt like you're going through the same, emotional achievements.
Yeah, well, it was more just we just really connected on this submoronic level so quickly. We just really got a kick out of. We would laugh at the same really, really dumb things, and we just we became fast friends. I don't know what to tell you.
And that because your crew is you, Stanley Tucci, and what, Hank Azaria?
Well, but that's the thing is it's not quite accurate only because Stan and Hank totally know each other. They met through me, but Hank and I went to Tufts together, and Hank moved out to L.A. pretty quickly.
Yeah,
and they they actually met when Stan and I were shooting Beethoven.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, there's I don't know, but that sort of New York crew was more sort of it was and funnily enough there were more like Steve Buscemi, Aidan Quinn, they were at that time Lily Taylor, Hope Davis, Allison Janney. I'm going back to when we were all young thesps.
Where was your favorite spots to hang out in New York at that time?
Here's the thing. I'd be lying if I I was never really. Maybe it had to do with the sort of the sort of the shape of my upbringing, which is that I'd go live somewhere, and then invariably after a couple of years I'd leave. So I never really necessarily had time to put a posse together. Yeah. But what I would often do is have one really good friend. So the truth is that I've definitely accrued, but a group of friends over my life. But the truth is, at any one time, I was more like me and one, maybe two. I wish I could say, I got together with my buddies. We all showed up at the same bar every night. It just didn't happen for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's why I appreciate it. Yeah, because I always wonder when people be like, oh man, the Odeon, or I love this place, and it's and sometimes I'm like, how much of this shit is true? you know?
Yeah, but you know what? That's why I love, that movie?
Sardi's.
Remember Swingers, that movie?
Yes.
I love that movie so much, because
Incredible.
because
You're so money, you don't even know it.
well, but that's the thing is like I remember I would go out and visit Hank
Okay.
in LA and Hank like either lived or practically lived with, and I'm talking about in the late 80s, Matthew Perry, Craig Bierko, they were swingers.
Yeah.
And I used to have so much fun hanging out with them.
Yeah.
Because they would, it was the same kind of thing. We just spend most of the time, like taking great delight in making each other laugh at really dumb things.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of, they adopted me when I when I would, roll into town. And I remember that made me very happy.
So you're a clothing guy, I would say, very much a clothing dude. I mean, especially now. I mean, you walk in with an incredible fit.
Dude, listen, I was a dormant. I was very fond of a bit of a clothes horse when I was a younger man.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna ask. Like, when did this? Were you that guy when you're with the crew?
I can't. Yeah, we like to dress up when we went out, and maybe even when we just like when we got out of bed in the morning, but not too much. But then what happened is that I gained a tremendous amount of weight, right? And so for a long time, I unfortunately, and this was like in my mid late 30s, and I when you're a 3X, you're there's not that many options. But then these the GLP-1s, these miracle drugs came along, completely changed my life. I mean, I've lost 1,000 pounds in my life, at least, but they would always,
in terms of kind of yo-yoing.
Yeah, they would always come back on. I mean, and it was never. Trust me, it's like it's so. I think it's just really marvelous the way that all this nutrition science and that fizzy. I don't know what precisely the medical discipline is called. Was it called obesity science or something? But they figured out that like. It's willpower's got nothing to do with it. They figured out a while ago that everybody has something called a set weight, right? Which Mother Nature, no matter pretty much, and by the way, if this is out of date, forgive me. Or if this is
there's
inaccurate,
a big umbrella of grace on this.
You're okay. If this is inaccurate, forgive me. But I remember it gave me so much, really sort of released me from so much sort of like way before the GLP-1s came along, from a lot of sort of like shame and like, oh, I don't have enough willpower. It's like, no, it's willpower. I got plenty of willpower. But this was something I was always destined to. It has to do with my physiology. It's got to do with my psychology. I think that I also, in addition to having a very efficient metabolism, and by that I mean something that's stored you definitely want to be on a desert island with me, because I'm going to be like, feeding off my own supply, if you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
And hopefully, a nice enough guy to let you have most of the coconut milk.
But you had talked about how you'd gain this weight. I mean, and there's many people, especially men, I'll be honest, who really wrestle with body image issues, myself included. And as a person who's always loved clothes and loved fashion, I'm a dude, I weigh myself every day if I can. And I agonize over every single like pound. When I was younger, I was definitely a chubby kid. I was the kid at the pool party who had the t-shirt on. I'll put that,
Dude, I'm so with you. So with you.
Yeah.
By the way, I was a chubby kid too.
Yeah, okay.
And then I sort of had to really.
But at least you're slinging dope lines at Mary and Joseph.
Saying, oh yeah, yeah. Well, but trust me, but that was all part of it, But by the way, I think that I don't know whether it was that. It was a physiological thing having to do with my age or just the environment. But it was when I got back. That's when I really started to gain weight as a kid. Was when I got back to. When I got back to the States in '68, probably, but honestly, and listen, I don't want to sound like I've had a great freaking life, So this was just this was one of the tougher chapters of my life. But I probably, because what I was also blessed with was sort of your garden variety eating disorder, the kind that like millions and millions of people in the world have, which is like a not strictly nutritional relationship with food, right?
Yeah,
there's a lot of emotional stuff in there. So food's your best friend. You eat when you're happy, when you're sad, and
eat at night.
You eat to celebrate. You eat to commiserate. I mean, it's like yeah. But no, but that's why the GLP-1s are so amazing. But
well, you're speaking out. So, are you saying that you use them?
I absolutely use them, and I think it's really important. Listen, I understand. and I think that this is actually really dissipating. But at first you could see so much, you could see a lot of shame.
Yeah, there was a bit of a stigma
around, and listen,
people viewed it as like cheat codes and
but
stuff.
I don't want to throw any shade on anybody. People are taking them for all kinds of different reasons, right?
Yep.
But I really tried. I discovered them because my brother was diagnosed with diabetes, and I hadn't seen him for a while. And one day I showed him, he'd shed all this weight. I was like, "What's going on?" He told me about this stuff called Ozempic. I waited. I wanted to wait, and I started to read up on it. Now I wanted to wait until it was approved for obesity, until I asked my doctor for it, because I didn't want to be taking it away from diabetics. And again, as you know, there was this huge shortage to begin with. But it took me a while to find the therapeutic dose. But I try and tell, I don't think. Look, man, this stuff, it's not about my vanity. It actually came along in my life like after funnily enough, I sort of handled the vanity stuff, because that's all the research that had been happening. You never completely handle the vanity stuff, obviously, but that set weight thing that everybody, like, I'm sorry, but Mother Nature you're pre-programmed. Everybody's got a certain set weight, and it's not necessarily the weight you want, but it's the weight that Mother Nature kind of intended you to be, roughly, no matter what you do.
Sure.
And so that was music to my ears. It was like, oh, great, I can accept that. I can,
Right.
But dude, this stuff is like, do I want to meet my kids' grandchildren? Absolutely. I really hope to. And this stuff is maybe going to give me a chance to do that. I mean, like next time you're at the gym, pick up, a 50-pound weight and walk around with it for an hour. That's what I was getting out of bed with that every day. You know what I mean? And so it's really it changed my life, obviously for the better, but getting back to but all of a sudden I could buy clothes again.
You're like, oh, now we're really talking.
I know. So of course I use this to mask what is also a mild to moderate shopping disorder. I've been known to crop up with me every now and then. But no, man, it's that's what's been really sort of fun, is having an excuse to sort of buy clothes again.
Well, and what's the clothes you've been buying? I mean, right now you're head to toe in what? You said free note?
I got a little free note. On. I got a little Dehen 1920. Those are two of those are the two American clothing companies that I've just like completely kidnapped me. It's the heritage wear thing, but there's obviously a huge
like
Japanese,
classic workwear.
Yeah, the workwear. There's a huge Japanese component to that, and both of these companies use a lot of Japanese fabric. Obviously,
have you been to Japan?
I lived in Japan when I was, the next place I lived was after Hong Kong. After Hong Kong, we went back to D.C. because Hong Kong, D.C., and then actually what was in the People's Republic of China very briefly, or for about a year, and then Japan. Yeah. So I moved to Japan when I was about 13.
Okay.
And that was the first country I lived in where I actually was aware. Well, no, China was obviously aware that I was living in a different country, but Japan was the first. China at that time, this was 1972. My brothers and I were the first American teenagers to live in the. It was
very different.
It was very different then than it is now.
Yes.
It wasn't like you didn't have the run of the city. Yeah. Right. It was you lived a very prescribed life. There are people watching you wherever
you're somewhat sequestered. Yeah.
Whereas when I got to Japan, I was 13, and it was open season, baby, and I grew like vertically very quickly, and when I was 13 years old, I was like 6 feet tall.
Are you serious? Yeah, because how tall are you now? You're what, like 6'3", 4"?
I'm 6. I've actually shrunk. In my heyday, I was 6'3", 6'3.5". But watch out, fellas! Like when you get up to me, I'll never forget the time when I had my first physical, and I got on the the scale with a little frickin'
those little height measuring
ruler, the extendo ruler on it, and my doctor was like, "Okay, 6'2". I'm like, "What?"
Pump the brakes, buddy.
I got measure again. All right. And I was like, I stood up as fast. And he just took pity on me. He was like, 6'2.25", when clearly it was still 6'2".
Change the chart.
Yeah. Anyway, do your stretches, man. Do your Pilates or your yoga. But here's the thing. this is 1972, 73, when
Sure.
Japanese culture was obsessed with learning English. So if you were a gaijin, which is what I was a foreigner,
Yeah.
you could walk in, and especially one, because they weren't into, I don't know, the whole carding thing wasn't really, it wasn't really happening. I mean, and I looked like, but somebody who was a gaijin would walk into a bar, and the Japanese businessmen would buy you drinks all night if you would speak English to them.
Oh,
so as like
just to kind of help practice. And, yeah, sure.
So as a young man who was so interested in, the ways of just getting into, partying and drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. This was like Lotus Land, right? And I was off to the races.
Were you, when you started like kind of buying clothes or, getting more into clothes, was there a person in your head that like you wanted to be? Like for me, still in my head, I want to be Cary Grant. Which I'm not going to be, but it's like when I think of this is the cool guy, and when I want to get a suit, this is how I want to look. It's Cary Grant.
That's
To Catch
awesome.
a Thief.
I probably had those. It's funny, nobody's popping into my head, but that doesn't mean that those people aren't there. I mean,
people like McQueen or Redford or Paul Newman.
Listen, I can tell you the designers that when I was like in my 20s and 30s, like and that's easily one guy popping into my head, and that was Paul Smith. This is the guy, because I'm sort of, if you will, if anything, my parents are WASPs, and so I went to. So I sort of grew like a little bit. We're very much lapsed WASPs, trust me.
Yeah.
But I grew up in that world of sort of like, Oxford shirts and
Brooks Brothers
down collar. Yeah. And so what Paul was doing in those days is that was sort of like this sort of like this point of departure for him.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was doing like, well, and look, he was English, right? So he was, but that's where all that stuff comes from, right? And so he was just sort of doing the coolest things with that design language, right?
Yeah.
And that's what really appealed to me, is sort of the way he I remember, like, just popping in my head, like one of my favorite pieces of I had a do you remember Catherine Hamnett?
Yeah.
Another British designer. She made these cool British schoolboy blazers with these thick stripes, right? And my favorite, I had this, actually my word
kind of like the rowing stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That whole, like that twisted, like, it's like Henley Regatta on acid type of thing, right? Yeah. And one of my favorite, I wore this to my engagement party. It was a Catherine Hamnett blazer. It was like thick, like 3-inch thick, alternating black and purple stripes,
Hell yeah.
And I just love that kind of stuff that sort of played with that.
Yeah, because I feel like, it's funny. I had Paul Smith on the pod once, and, the thing I was asking was like, man, you've been doing this for so long. Like, do you ever feel like you can kind of put it on cruise control? And he was always like, yeah. He's like, nobody cares what you used to be, for him in fashion. But, and he had said that, and I was like, wow. Like, he's still a designer who is seeking to challenge himself on what he's doing versus like, hey, look, those multi-striped socks all you've been wearing, like, we're good. I'm heading to Spain. We'll see you later.
Yeah, but I can sort of, like, God bless him, right?
Yeah.
But listen, it's like he's who wants to rest on their laurels, right?
For sure.
And by the way, even if you did want to rest on your laurels, in so many businesses or industries or fields of endeavor, like, you're only as good as your last fill in the blank, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, even if we weren't thinking that way, the world is helping us think that way. So,
yeah,
you gotta just keep moving, right?
Yeah. So what brands have you been buying lately? I mean, we talked about Free Note.
Well, dude, I just went. I had no idea about. I mean, you can probably tell me when the whole heritage wear thing started to happen.
Good. Yeah.
I mean, in this country, right? And
I'm probably like mid 2000s, early 2000s.
That makes sense to me because again, I didn't. That was when I was in my dormant, very much in my dormant phase. But yeah, so there's something about the. First of all, I'm just fascinated by the whole DNA of the heritage wear thing, and like going back to post World War II Japan, and now and how the Japanese discovered denim.
Yeah,
and then of course, like they do with everything, well, like improved it.
Yeah,
once they fell in love with it. And then that was just the beginning of this whole sort of, now, it's gone away, with like the Osaka 5 and all that stuff. Like the Japanese denim culture has gone through all of these.
Well, did you hear the big issue right now, right, is there's a shortage, a huge shortage where, I mean, the price of, brands like Ironheart and Samurai and, you'd mentioned the Osaka 5, like Warehouse and Studio D'Artisan, like there's the amount that they're able to make is gone down significantly because there's been a backlog, a huge pent up demand. This is not like, tied to the war stuff. Like this is
no, but that's because right now it's like, I guess I'm just a frickin', trend follower or something. I mean, which is so interesting. With listen, I'm not remotely invested in being or not being that thing. Yeah. I'm just thrilled that I get to, shop for clothes again. But apparently there is. I mean, this is what I love too about YouTube and especially YouTube Premium.
Dude, YouTube Premium is the best streaming service.
Dude, I'm gonna say YouTube Premium is unbelievable. If you put a gun to my head and said, you got to give everything, you got to give everything up, every platform, that wouldn't even be the shortest conversation in the world. Like, with YouTube Premium, the world is your oyster, man.
Yeah, I do not want an ad about, whatever. Just like, I want to watch the whole videos.
Also, ads that come along whenever they want to, not when like the writers of the sitcom just, like knew an ad was coming. It's like you're just at the good part, and all of a sudden, me.
They're now explaining the natural dip dye process of the indigo, and it's like, what? McDonald's.
But you can just go down these holes, but my knowledge of all this stuff is basically incredibly superficial. But it's still so much. It's so much fun to learn about, all of these subcultures on YouTube, right? But
when we were chatting earlier in Chicago and we were talking about, you had just gotten some pants that they were persimmon dyed or something.
Well, that's one of my favorite little things that I've sort of like, there's this process, right? A dyeing process they call kakishibu.
Yeah.
Which basically, it's sort of it's where instead of dyeing the cotton in, beautiful African indigo from Zimbabwe, they dye it in fermented persimmon juice.
Yeah.
Okay. And it comes out this beautiful, various shades.
Yeah.
And by the way, never the same shade, unless of course it's the same dye lot.
Yeah.
But of this sort of like brown, like light brown, like reddish brown, maybe a darker brown. But the idea that you're wearing something that's been dyed with persimmon juice, it's like, look, I've always loved that palette. I like, brown has always been a favorite color of mine for clothes, but just the idea that you're wearing persimmon juice is so freaking cool.
I mean, it is. It's funny too, because I feel like, you had said like it's a trend thing, but I think it's more the fact that probably over the past 10, 15 years, specifically American consumers have become much more aware of the impact of what they're buying and how that, one, affects the environment, but also I think in some of this stems from, the 2008 recession, into which we were slowly being told to ask for more from more of our wardrobes. And so the whole buy less but buy better, you had, you got to, and I think there's, because there's so many things that are a part of this, but there's also almost a normalization of it's okay for men to like clothes and to care about their appearance and to, invest in their appearance. I think there is a unfortunate, stigma way, way, way back, in the day where if you cared about that stuff, it was, insulting to your masculinity and all these bullshit things. And now it's like, it's cool to nerd out with your friends and talk about fucking persimmon dye.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, that never occurred to me that it was, But listen, what's really interesting to me about what you're saying. So you're saying, but what I thought you were just saying is you think that heritage wear started to happen mid-aughts, so like 2005, 2006, and yet. Yes. What I think so interesting about what you're saying is that the 2008 like accelerated that.
Yes,
right,
absolutely,
right.
And then you had
because literally one of my favorite retailers, their motto is literally like own less really good thing.
Oh, Standard and Strange.
Oh, is that it? Is that Standard and Strange?
They were like
that's exactly right.
Early
that's
supporter of the pod. Yeah,
that's absolute. That's them. Yeah. That's them. I've been wanting to go to Standard and Strange forever, but this whole heritage wear thing for me really caught fire in Chicago, like this season.
Oh, on the Bear.
And the Bear and Med, and when the Bear and Med they shoot simultaneously, starting around the first of the year.
Yeah,
and I was just trapped there for. I love Chicago, but I like to come home to New York too.
Yeah.
And I just I think it's safe to say that sort of like
lighten up the e-com.
One of the ways I dealt with like maybe leaving that painful character on the set was like I'd get home and I'd do a little shopping.
Yeah.
But you're shopping online, and becoming a big Freenote fan like very, very quickly. I soon learned that their East Coast branch was actually Standard & Strange.
That's true.
Yeah, and so, but I didn't get home for something like 3 months, which is really unusual because but even when both shows are shooting, that's unusual. But so I finally we just wrapped, and I went there with my I wanted to, for my daughter's birthday, get her a really nice pair of. I wanted to share my new Japanese denim appreciation with her and get her a really nice pair of jeans. And so we went to Standard & Strange. We hit all the hot spots, but ended up copping her a pair of who were they? They were
Buzz Rickson.
Buzz Rickson, yeah, Buzz Rickson. I get at Self Edge. Yeah. That's right. Which was the first place we went. But then we still wanted to go in blue. We wanted to go blue and green. We wanted to go to Standard & Strange. We wanted to go to
make the full rounds of
all those places,
top tier denim spots. Yeah, have I'm sure you chat with your other friends. Like, what have they thought about you being in this zone, or have they just been like, oh, it's just Oliver being Oliver?
No, dude. They're actually, because I've just got home, and look, when I'm in Chicago, Well, no, you know what? They did notice it, and even on because I walk on, I'd show up at work, and they're going like, "What the hell is going? You don't wear pants. You wear like stretchy Lululemon Stretcherama," and I was starting to like, come on, man, I want to wear my new clothes, and like literally just me wearing a pair of structured trousers and a button-down shirt was like breaking news. You know what I mean? So they start to know, but it's like I've really kind of just gotten home, and look, it's not just my friends, it's my family. They're going, what the hell is going on with you? But yeah, what can I tell you? It's like it's fun. You know what I mean?
I think that's the easiest.
Clothes are like they're like what grown-ups we don't really have. They're toys for us, right? We don't get to like buy a Lego set. We can, but it's like, and I got to be careful, dude, because I can go. I mean, let's face it, I already have gone overboard, and I'm just trying to pump the brakes.
No, well, I mean, one, and I've talked about this a lot on and I've spoken to folks at SVA and Parsons and stuff, and a lot of times I'll talk about like kind of shopping and figuring out like what brands and I tell everyone the same thing. I was like, you kind of have to honestly buy it all. It's not that I'm trying to promote this like rampant consumerism, but you do, in most cases, it's not like you can go and study some piece of artwork and then you're like now an expert on it. In the case of clothing, in my experience in menswear, a lot of times you need to own it. You need to wear it. You need to see how it feels. And you know what? You may not like that person a few years from now. In the sense of, I used to wear head to toe like Tom Brown. I used to wear a lot of Rick Owens, a lot of more avant-garde stuff. And it was probably maybe over the past few years that I've been like, I'm so glad that I got that time in my life to wear that and figure that out, because I knew what I liked from each part of it. And now I feel like, I'm in my 40s where I'm like, okay, you know what? I want to wear basic, tennis shoes. I don't want to wear like sort of hype Air Jordans, but I do want to wear like, classic Japanese denim. I also, and I've kind of learned what are the things that I'm okay with splurging on, and what are the things that I'm okay no, I don't need to have this custom made, or I don't need to have, but I wasn't able to come to that realization, until I had to go through all the shit and all the different eras of me buying all these clothes.
That's so interesting. And look, I think you're much more of a, you are an actual, and if you don't mind, you're in that profession.
Sure.
You're in the clothes profession.
Yeah.
And so I can really, listen, for me, the way I relate to what you're saying is even if you want to buy that stuff, if you're just like an old guy on a heritage wear bender, you like, and you're in Chicago. Look, there's a few great
Do you go to, like,
stores in Chicago.
Notre,
No, like in
Independence?
Chicago, there's like Mild Blend Supply
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
and Independence
Yep.
and Ford General, so great heritage wear places. But I'm working really hard. I it was a rare weekend I could even get there.
Yeah, it's true.
But so I was doing a lot of shopping online, and as hard as they try to give you as accurate sizing information
Your
as
measurement
possible,
charts.
eventually you run out of luck. You know what I mean?
That's true.
But it's another reason why, when I finally walked into, well, actually, no, it was the first time I walked into Self-Edge in Los Angeles.
Okay.
It was the first time I'd been in one of these meccas where I could actually I was confronted with actual physical examples and all these different sizes of this brands that I've become so fascinated by, and also being able to talk to people who really knew what they were talking about, whereas I was just sort of a
you're
punter,
Googling or finding a YouTube video.
I have this very superficially impressive, really half-inch thin. My knowledge is.
You've been dropping some knowledge. You said Osaka
but that's
5.
just because I'm an
People
actor and I'm really good at making it sound like I know what I'm talking about. I really don't, and I really mean that. But this is what I was thinking about when you were talking just now. In this, of one of the reasons why the whole heritage wear thing appeals to me so much is because, first of all, and by the way, and I don't subscribe to this phrase that I'm about to drop.
Okay.
But I guess I do a little bit because I don't want to look stupid. It's the traditional sort of idiom, if you will,
okay,
of heritage wear. It feels a little bit more age appropriate, in the sense that, but also there's something deeply appealing to me about stuff that is this is sort of it's Americana.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but and again, heritage wear. It's workwear. And as you know now, it's because of how post-war Japan was sort of like ground zero, if you will. That's not the greatest expression to use, but I hope you understand the spirit of which I'm using it. But that where you and this is one of the fascinating ironies to me about.
Have you read Amitora?
No,
David Marks.
Is that like
my friend David Marks?
Is that the track to the Bible of how heritage wear?
Well, it basically the whole concept of that book, and I just interrupted you to say this thing because I think what you're talking about is so W. David Marks, very very good friend of mine. He's lived in Japan for over 20 years. He's an American guy. David Marks connected how post World War II Japan and Japan's fascination with American workwear and military clothing really led to them, studying, improving it. And now, I mean, in all honesty, the best American style, I'm air quoting that word, is all in Japan. It doesn't exist here. American style here is Lululemon and On Running, which, with all due respect, is not something I want to be when I look in the mirror every day.
Right, but then listen, but I think that's why I'm saying that these two, the two companies that I'm completely in love with right now are Dehen and Freenote, and those are very much American companies.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Who are and granted, a huge there's a big over a lot of their fabrics are Japanese,
mm-hmm.
But they're trying to what I also love about the fact is this stuff is all so overbuilt. It's all so beautifully made. You know
got
what I mean?
Triple needle stitch on your shoulders.
No, but it's they literally go on record as saying our plan is for your great grandchild to be giving this to your great great grandchild, right?
Yeah,
and
heirloom quality.
Yeah, heirloom quality, right? But also this is the other cool thing about it, because if you weren't sort of familiar with heritage wear, you'd think that it was all very sort of traditional and boring. It's the farthest thing from it. But one of the sort of the traditions that I've become so fascinated with and I'm so grateful for is this idea of the collab, right? Where you have a manufacturer collabing with one of these premium retail outlets. Yeah. Because again,
Self-Edge has been doing that for ages. Yeah.
Well, I know why, right? Because again, the whole idea is that, like you say, they when they started these companies, they never wanted to. They never wanted to be the Gap. They knew that
correct
that
factories don't want to be retailers.
They knew that scale was not the kind of scale that you need to achieve in your traditional American capitalist workflow, if you will. It's just was never in the cards for them. So it's more about, if you will, and I don't like this word, but exclusivity in the sense just that it's expensive. But like anything, like you get what you pay for.
Well, and I think,
and their idea is that you're going to get one of these, and it's going to last you a long, long time, or 2 or 3, but they're going to last you a really long, long time. And I get just the fact that the stuff is so well built. But here's the thing: when you have these collabs, is when like there is a retailer that's based in Virginia, and you've probably heard of it. Maybe you haven't. It's called Division Road.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an astonishing place because they just have the most, the way they curate their product lines or the stuff they choose to carry. It's really impressive. But then all of their, they get input. That's the whole idea behind a collab, right? Like they will collaborate with, Dehen or Freenote or you name it. And then you'll have that's where you start to get into the more eccentric, like this, like the more of like if you will, the Paul Smithiness of it all.
Yeah,
where it starts to get a little bit more racy and in I think a really often really cool way.
Yeah,
but it's never too over the top because again, it's still always it's heritage wear.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It really appeals to me that because those are sort of the guardrails, if you will, right? It's heritage wear. But that's still, anyway, man, I could just talk about this stuff forever.
You and there's plenty of TV and film execs that listen to this, but I'm definitely asking for you and Tucci to go do a Japan show. He's got his Italy show.
Mr. Tucci's a clothes horse. Let me tell you something, pal.
Yeah,
never stop being a clothes horse.
I mean, he's got great style, and I think it's great to be in a position now into which American culture is very much widely accepting, and it's completely normalized for men to be into shopping. Even at the beginnings of me doing this podcast. And this was 2016, right? So, I mean, I've been in the menswear and clothing industry since 2008, 9? And I remember telling people about it, and you're like, well, but men don't really shop. And I'm like, who the fuck are you talking to?
Well, yeah, that's like,
first, and that's not even them like being like, oh, have you heard about, Gene Pressman and Barney's and all these, and also Jeffrey back in the day in meatpacking, how that was a huge, deal for men's shopping and menswear and stuff. But it's great to have that more of the norm. And this is why, I don't know if you're a golfer. I am not a golfer. But the biggest thing that's blown up over, maybe the past 3-4 years has been
golf wear.
And
really,
it is. I mean, right now, as we're recording this, the Masters are going on. And I'm not a huge golfer, but seeing how golf style, air quote, has really made its way into menswear and seeing people like my brother-in-law, whom I love dearly, get more into clothing and shopping through some of these golf brands.
But that's awesome.
It is awesome. And I say this as, I hope that people will kind of, the human curiosity, you'll be like, yeah, but what's the real good stuff?
Extend them beyond those borders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally.
So.
No, I know what you mean. It's like the cliche traditional idea of maybe the pre this era you're talking about of golf wear is not necessarily something that I would naturally gravitate to.
No, I mean, there was good style.
It's so prescribed.
Yes.
There's definitely always been stylish golf wear.
Yeah, Jack Nicklaus but it was more the individuals versus the brands. But
no, dude, who was that guy? He was a large gentleman who could hit the ball a mile. I wish I could remember his name. John.
Oh,
he started his own clothing line. He was a bit of a naughty boy. And he was
not John Daly. Yeah, John Daly.
John Daly.
Yeah,
dude,
it is John Daly.
I have a pair of John Daly shoes, and I had no idea. But this is the perfect example of the outlier, right? Definitely an outlier. He started this fashion line ages ago.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pairs of shorts that I've owned for like 15 years is a pair of John Daly shorts, and what it is like a massive houndtooth. So that like each houndstooth is this size, and there's only room for about 8 of them on the whole pair of shorts, But I love these shorts, and I it was only until after I purchased them that I realized that I was buying some sort of like golf wear on acid.
It's funny. Bill Murray has his own golf clothing brand.
Really?
Mm-hmm. because he's a big golfer. And yeah, I mean, if you're not saying you need to do this, but like some of these folks are like, yeah, like I'm gonna, instead of making a tequila company, I'm gonna get into golf clothes because it's just growing like crazy.
Damn, dude, I just wish I had that. I don't, for some reason, Are
you sure you wish you had that? I think it's okay to just have one focus.
Thank you.
You don't
Everybody
need to
is
have
like,
the
no, I mean,
entrepreneurial-
you know, I just consider myself so lucky that I just still love acting. A lot of people get tired of it, you know. I just still love doing it. I can't believe I get paid to do this still.
You got any stuff
but everybody, I mean, everybody, you know, they've like got a, you know, and it makes me feel like, oh, I should be doing that too. They've got a, I don't know,
that's
a toothbrush line, or
because they have the same 5 business managers. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to gossip, but it's just like, yeah, they're trying to grow or, you know, leverage their persona, and it's like I think there's a beauty in focus.
Yeah,
know?
Man. No, I'm look, I can't say it's necessarily by choice. I think it's sort of a lot to do with the way my mind works, and like also my just tremendous good fortune in my chosen career. But but listen, it's not. It also does, you know. It does hold. Look, it's certainly fun to fantasize about. I know myself well enough to know that like there's a whole lot of territory.
Plaids.
In between, yeah, or something. There's a whole lot of territory that's just never going to be tilled, you know, in between me and my fantasies. But it is fun to think about, you know, like what would my signature product be?
Platt's plates.
It's something, you know, Platt's plates. That would be a good one. That would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
You're like, dear biz manager, here's you know how I continue to skyrocket.
But you know, it's funny. Like I have to say this because you and I met on like the set of The Bear this season, right? And you said told me that you did this podcast.
Thanks to Maddie.
And you were very you flattered me by asking me to come on it. But I don't know about. I mean, you know, my kids are still trying to. I'm only just. I wish that it's one of my goals is to get a regular, you know, just to listen to a regular rotation of podcasts, and I'm still working on that. But you sent me your visit with Chris Storer, right? And I had
it's like one of the only pods he's ever done.
And dude, this is the only pod I've ever done, bro. and I was just fascinated. I had no idea that Chris was, you know, you started talking about like that. I didn't know that Chris had worked in, you know, in the clothing industry before he worked, you know, man of mystery. It's like I thought I knew Chris a little, but listen to this. So and one of the brands you started to talk about was Drake's.
Yes.
And that this is sort of like it's just on the very edge of my peripheral vision in the sort of my heritage wear journey. You sort of see that name crop up, so it made me go, okay, I want to. And so I went on the Drake's website, and what do you know about like my first? The truth is I ordered all because of you and Chris.
Whoops.
I went on the and the games.
Yeah.
The games line.
Games Blazer.
The games Blazer. Because I love that sort of unstructured, like
kind of chore code-ish.
Like loose. Yeah, you can be sort of like you're like a sort of a. It's like you're a stylish lout, you know, who wears that stuff like. And you know, as you're like on a bar crawl or something like that, but you're still so charming even when you're hammered, right? but what do you know? I like they had this beautiful cornflower gold games jacket, and I wanted a suit. Anyway, I ordered the frickin' cornflower gold games blazer. Didn't really fit, but then I've been fibbing a little bit. In that 3-month period, I got back to New York once for a weekend, and I brought my games blazer with me that didn't fit. And my plan was I was going to go to the Drakes on
Canal.
On Canal, and a charming gentleman named Jack Nagel. You know, we basically I was able to surrender my games blazer in exchange for a MTO, you know, suit of the same. Yeah, but dude, let me tell you something. It was really well priced for what it was.
Yeah, I mean,
and tomorrow I got to see if Jack got back to me, but like tomorrow I'm going for the final fitting I'm going to pick this thing up.
Oh, Okay.
I am so excited. Will ever wear it anywhere? Cornflower gold, but just the coolest color, man.
And maybe you wear it to the premiere
of.
I don't know. Whatever your next thing is.
Yeah, wear it to a premiere.
Wear it to the premiere of you going to the coffee shop.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure you're cruising around the West Village. You go to Cafe Clooney and just...
Yeah, man, it's right down
sit
the street.
outside? Yeah,
sure.
We'll
see. It's my whole... Who knows what'll happen with my new... my Clothes Horse 2.0. Will I crash and burn? Will I be laughed out of town? Stay tuned.
Yeah. Well, Oliver, thank you so much from the absolute bottom of my heart for coming on the show.
Dude, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, it's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
No, just thank you, man. Thank you. It was so much fun.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, well, I'll see you soon.
All right.
All right, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Our show was produced by Blamo Media. We're edited by Amarlal, and our theme music by Breakmaster Cylinder. If you like listening to the show, do the things you do when you like stuff. Tell a friend, leave the 5 stars, give us the reviews, do all the things that you do when you like stuff. It's a great feeling, isn't it? Feels good, right? Keep those vibes positive. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jeremy Kirkland, and we will see you all soon.